And maybe we can get started with the workshop and keep moving from there. But Pramanya, thank you so much for hosting us today. My name is Silvia Oviedo. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Bloma, and we are very excited to be in partnership with Founders Bay to be talking about the future of work and why betting on yourself might be the smart move. And so the plan for today is we're gonna have, I'll be chatting a little bit about the future of work, some trends that we're seeing, and some a product that we've built to as a response to those trends. We'll get hands on and then we'll open it up. The idea is that this is going to be an interactive session, opening it up to questions, answers, commentary, Q&A, and so on. So please be ready to participate. We are very excited to have you here today. And while we get started, there's a couple additional people that are popping in. I'd love to hear, like, maybe you can type it in the chat where everyone is dialing in from. That would be fantastic. So let's take 10 seconds for that. All right, we have it. Sounds like we have a bunch of people in California. I am generally in San Francisco as well. I'm actually in New York today, but at 3 p.m. I'm headed to the airport, flying back to the Bay Area. Okay, we have Seychelles. It's like when you hear someone that's from such an amazing place, you're like, oh, I wish I was there on vacation, but you're probably not on vacation at the moment. You're just based there. Awesome. All right, well, we can get going. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Let's get started. Welcome to the future of work and why betting on yourself might be the smart move. Let me start with a number before I even tell you more about who I am. By 2030, and that is not far away, 39% of the core skills that any job needs today will have changed. Not job titles, the actual skills inside it. Nearly two in five skills, aptitudes, capabilities rewritten in 3.5 years from now. That is what the World Economic Forum's latest Future of Jobs report says. This same research projects that 22% of jobs globally will be disrupted this decade. And it's not only the work that is shifting, it is the support around it. Remote work has thinned out the mentorship that used to happen by osmosis, just from being in the room. And the people who would normally lean on to guide us through all this, and since this is a room of founders, like your team would usually lean on each other, on managers, on leaders to learn and grow. These people are more overloaded than they've ever been. So this is what I keep coming back to. Work is updating weekly and daily, new tools, new technology, new ways of doing things. But the ways that we are supporting our teams haven't really kept up. The way that our company grows, your manager, coach, your people, the way that the climb a ladder idea, that model is cracking. And here's the important part. AI didn't really invent any of this. It is just accelerating the trends that were already underway. Most of us are feeling that acceleration without quite having the words for it yet. And it's really amazing to see organizations like Founders Bay or companies like Bluma creating spaces and products in responses to what is happening. But before I go any farther, I would love to hear in the chat, high level, how do you feel about this AI and future of work conversation? I know you come from different backgrounds, you come from different industries, so I would love to hear some responses in the chat based on how you're approaching this. I love AI, love that. It's like it's very polarizing, but everything about it. Is there any one thing that you particularly love about AI? All right, from Basu, we have disruption to existing organizational structures and workforce. AI will eliminate entry levels, um, but will augment the mediocre to refine. I love that take. I'll touch on entry level later. It is expensive if you want to build a real product. That's interesting. Lots of mixed opinions. Um, okay, there's definitely a lot of the best thing that happened in the last 20 years after cellular. Future of work is changing, but yeah. Overwhelm, that's interesting. The pace of AI and the uncertainty it brings. I think the overwhelm and the need to catch up, especially as founders, is something that we don't talk about enough. I think as a founder, you always have to be on, you have to be the person that is constantly um, like at the forefront of everything and being on board with everything. And sometimes you don't even know like what's the best way to roll out. What is the longevity of a tool, of a technology? Um, Sima, I love your take. Real shift is not just in faster work, it's helping people make better decisions, keep context, and spend more time on judgment. That's a really, really interesting way to take it. I think we will talk more about that, so I'm going to reserve that for later. But with this icebreaker out of the way, let me introduce myself because a lot of these questions and topics and themes are exactly the reason why I care about this and why I'm building the company that I'm building. My name is Silvia Oviedo, and 15 years ago, I moved from Europe to the US. I moved to San Francisco, and I spent some time like doing the Silicon Valley route, I guess. Back then, I started my career at Yahoo. I moved to eBay when I moved to the US. I took a job that looked good on paper, but in reality was I undersold myself and I got a little bit bored early on. And I think when you're bored, you have a couple of things that you can do. You can just be bored and sulk, or you can figure out what to do next. So the cool thing that a company like eBay gives you is an amazing network, right? So you have a lot of people that you can reach out to, you can tap to, you can ask questions, you can interview. So I started getting coffee. I love coffee. So I started getting coffee with someone interesting every day, and I learned a ton. And I actually got positioned to in the social exploration part of the company, which opened the door for me to eventually join Pinterest. And that curiosity and that moment of exploration actually put me at the forefront of two of the biggest technology shifts of the last decade. At Pinterest, I had the opportunity to work on social and like visual discovery, like things that were really cool and brand new. And I got to help bring that to a global audience. I joined Pinterest to take Pinterest international, and I got to build a company from like a handful, I mean, a handful of million of users. That's quite a lot of millions. But like a small, like I think when I joined, it was about like maybe 15 million MAUs to almost 500 million users globally. And then, and also design and build the systems that scale across countries and languages, and also the teams that scale the company. And then at Canva, I started working with the Canva team early on, back when they were about 15 people in 2015. I started as an advisor, but then in 2022, I moved full time. And I helped take professional design, something that used to require expensive tools and a lot of specialized knowledge, to and put it in hands of millions of people who'd never had access to it before. Um, and the coolest part of all is at Canva, I got to be at the forefront of the AI shift. So very early on, my organization actually owned the rollout of AI products at Canva, things like magic design, image generation, and so on. So we got to be early on part of the teams working with companies like OpenAI or Anthropic and translating that new technology that seemed very esoteric at the time and roll it out to millions of users worldwide. And I think for me, what that signal was, I worked on different products, different business problems, but there was the same thread that I care about. Take something that's really powerful that only a few people can use and make it work for everyone everywhere. And now we're standing at the front of the next wave, AI, right? Which is bigger than social media and visual discovery, and it's bigger than design, right? And I think someone mentioned this in the chat. This is like one of the biggest like I would argue this is the biggest technological shift since the Industrial Revolution. Um, and I know I'm a techno optimist, but I was recently in a talk by Boris Cherny of Anthropic, and he made it analog to the printing press, right? It's like the reality is that we're giving people access to something that traditionally has been very gated. Technology has been very gated. Even if you knew how to code, a very small percentage of the population was able to code, was able to translate ideas into actual products. And then the challenge is how do you grow these products? Um, so across my journey at Pinterest, across my journey at Canva, I had the opportunity to build and lead large organizations. So at Pinterest, I was running all our global offices. At Canva, my organization was 1,500 people. And what I kept seeing was the same gap, people needing real support in the moments between the formal stuff, between training, the occasional good manager talk, goal setting, performance reviews. Everything like development and impact happens on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I had an idea sparked in my brain, and the question for me was, how do I translate this technology, AI? How do I translate the principles of great leadership, team building, and coaching? And how do I translate the needs that people are seeing right now? And so that led me to build Bluma. My idea was to do for career growth what Canva did for design. Quality career support when people actually need it, not just when people are senior enough to have it handed to them, and built in a way that's actually fit for purpose. There's a lot of like great generalist tools out there. You can go to Google, you can go to Gemini, you can go to ChatGPT, you can read blogs. But a lot of these tools are not personalized to you. They're not built based on principles of great coaching and leadership. They don't learn from you. They're not proactive. They don't keep you accountable. So that is what we set out to do. And you'll have an opportunity to play with the tool later on in the session. But before I do that, I'm very curious, and you can just give me a reaction on the Zoom. How many of you have had access to coaching? Do I have one, two, no coaching, but see the value from others' experiences? So, okay. So you have mentors. We have a mix of people who have had coaching versus not. So the interesting reality is that 95% of CEOs get access to coaching, right? And this is amazing for CEOs, but the reality is that the large majority of people who are not CEOs do not get access to coaching. And the reason for that is there's several reasons for that. The first one is cost. Coaching has traditionally been cost prohibitive. Sessions range from $300 to like $1,500 if you want one of those celebrity coaches. It's very difficult to scale, even in organizations that do invest in their people. Like there's some orgs that you might have been part of that have in-house coaching. You might get at Canva, just to give you an example, I was able to send 6 people per quarter out of an organization of 1,500, right? It's like it was a limited amount of people that could actually benefit from it. I would love to make coaching available to 100% of the population, right? So that's kind of the mission that we set out to. Because one question that I also have, and you're all founders and leaders, your teams may vary in size, but if you want to go to the next slide, Pia, I would love to hear in the chat, how do you think your team is feeling based on all the forces that are around us? And you can just give me one word with how do you think people are feeling on your team. And if your team is yourself, you can just give me one word for yourself. Frazzle. I love that word. Like frazzle is such a good word to define how people feel in moments of uncertainty, excited but overwhelmed. Yeah, like I think everything felt all at once, right? I think there's a little bit of like there's excitement, there's overwhelm, there's like people knowing that they should do more, but the question is how do I do more? So definitely we're in a period of transition, and when I look back at the 10 years, it's like it's feeling like the past 10 years have been a never-ending period of transition. So I just decided that I'm going to go with it. So, all right, let's chat more about like a roadmap for today. And I know we're already a few minutes in, but first thing that we'll do is talk about this change, and then we'll do a hands-on exercise, and then we'll talk about surfing the wave. As mentioned, I want to keep it interactive, so I'll keep on asking questions. But after chatting about the next section, I'm gonna pause briefly for a little bit of Q&A, or AMA, or however we want to run this, because I would love to hear what's top of mind for you. Perfect. All right. So first of all, let's talk about what is changing and why it feels different. My read is that we're in a shift of the basic social contract of work. Paths are less predictable, orgs change faster. As mentioned, AI is not necessarily inventing this, it's accelerating it. And the interesting part is that many organizations are using AI to make big changes, but also they're using it as a crutch to make people and organizational decisions that had already been in the horizon for many months. Now it's like, oh, it's like we're downsizing because AI efficiency is like, well, like, can you point at the AI efficiency? Sometimes it's hard, right? Um, so, if you want to pop in the chat, and I'll just keep going, but if you want to pop it for others to see, is like name one thing that AI has already changed or that looks completely different than it did a year ago. One thing that it has changed for me in a very positive way is modeling and budgeting is like night and day with new AI tools, right? It's like I used to spend so much time, and now actually my ability to forecast and build financial models is so much better. Design and branding, I love that. I've been playing a lot with it lately. It's extremely powerful. Keep it coming because I think it might inspire fellow founders. Um, but going back to the trends that we're seeing, we put out a report recently on the future of work trends, and we'll link it for you after this session in case you want to take a little look. But I wanted to dive on two. The first trend is the death of the job. The job, which is how we've been organizing our entire working lives around and our teams' lives, is really coming apart. It's not disappearing overnight, it's decomposing. And I think the signs are pretty clear. Every job is really a bundle of tasks stapled together under one title, right? A marketer writes copy, pulls data, briefs designers, runs report, runs your brand, manages a calendar. A product manager writes strategy documents, runs experimentation, analyzes results, researches the market, etc., etc. But what AI is doing right now in most of our jobs isn't deleting the whole bundle. It's reaching and pulling out individual tasks, right? It's like coding, it's the budgeting, it's the modeling, it's this, the first draft, the data pool, the summary. So the role doesn't vanish. It gets hollowed and rearranged, and some things are added. But the reality is that it changes faster than the org chart can keep up. And I know someone alluded to entry-level jobs being impacted. The reality is that 39% of the skills are changing. And the part that worries me the most, even as a techno optimist, is that the tasks that AI is taking right now are the entry-level ones, which I think for anybody that is senior but has a lean team is great. It's like all those like grunt work is going away. That's great. But I think one component of that grunt work is the apprenticeship. It's how junior people learn to think. It's how new designers build taste. It's how any one of us absorbed judgment early on, how we got a lot of the hands-on mentorship, right? And when you automate away that bottom rung of tasks, you don't just lose the task, you pull up the ladder. And the on-ramp to expertise narrows at the exact moment when change demands more of it. So, how do we lead our teams and our people and the next generation coming into the workforce, right? I think it's about um, shifting how we anchor identities to titles and starting to anchor those to capabilities, right? Because those are the real and portable things that you can do and keep adding to or removing, right? The people who thrive in this new era, I don't think will have the safest looking job on paper. They'll be the ones who can keep recomposing their own mix of skills, on purpose and a little faster than the world around them changes, right? And so I think that's, to me, what is betting on yourself over and over. It's the ability to recompose and realign yourself to that the needs of the moment. I think every founder does that very well. So probably in this room, that is a skill that comes pretty naturally to you. But when I think about the teams, that's generally something that I see people struggling with. The second one is the other half of why this moment feels so destabilizing. Managers are getting squeezed from every direction at once. And when I say manager, I mean leader, people leader, etc. Think about everything we now ask a manager to be. You want a coach, a mentor, a strategist, a culture builder, a therapist on the hard days. And now, on top of all that, is a translator for leadership, an AI advocate, an AI strategist, and the person who's somehow supposed to work out what everything means, with generally with no playbook and yeah, it's like the math is really not mathing when we ask them to take on 5 jobs at once. And if you layer on what's happened to org structures, you'll see companies that are getting leaner and flatter, right? And that sounds very efficient when you put it on a slide for the board. But in practice, what that means is that each manager has a lot more people reporting to them, less time for everyone, and less mental space. So when we're asking managers to lead and project certainty to their teams or to be the steady one, the question is, how are we supporting them? How are we handing them the map to guide their people through it? Um, so this is the other bit that we are noticing. And one question that I would have for all of you is, oops, I think. Can you, so the big takeaway for me is that you can no longer assume that your development will be handed to you. It has to become something you own. And I think for solopreneurs, founders, leaders, that is something that you're probably very used to doing, but you don't necessarily have the tools. So I'm very curious, and we can use a reaction for this. Are you feeling more stretched than you used to? And if you have a manager, does your manager feel more stretched than they used to be? All right. Before we go into the next section and I show you a little bit of the tool that we've been building, I would love to take a quick beat and jump into a very quick Q&A, or treat it more as an AMA, if you will, about future of work, leading organizations through change, and anything else that's top of mind. And I may actually start. There was one question in the chat from Susu. Does AI correct the hiring system to make stakeholders accountable? I think that's a very interesting question. Um, and you know what? Actually, there's been a couple studies recently and a couple articles talking about how a lot of AI hiring or like hiring systems, candidate trackers, um, are applying a fair amount of bias to candidate selection and hiring systems. So I think there's a couple answers to that. The first one is you can delegate to technology, but you should always have checks and balances, right? I think it's important to deploy technology in a way that serves a purpose. And I think ultimately humans need to have oversight to make sure that technology is doing what it's supposed to do. Otherwise, I think we are in that situation where we let robots run wild and robots tend to like just self-reinforce in their bias. So I think that's an interesting thing to do. I think the other question of that is I do believe that AI can turn um, hiring processes or actually onboarding processes into better supported processes. Right now, my feeling is that oftentimes we go through hiring someone, we bring them into the organization, and then it's like, hey, here's a presentation and some PDF documents, and now go figure it out on your own. And I think that's where AI systems can become really, really supportive. And that I'll show you, Bloma, what we've built, because onboarding is one of the use cases where we have seen it work pretty well. So thank you for the question. There's one question here as well from Basu. From your research, have you seen companies recognize this workforce change? Um, I'd love to, if you want to explain a little bit more about what you mean, like with that specific workforce change. But what I would say is high level, yes. I think companies are recognizing that there's a big change in the workforce. I do think that they are biasing more for people who can demonstrate specific skills and capabilities. I think the experience per se matters less than it used to, right? It's like, oh, you have 10 years of experience doing XYZ. I think right now it's more interesting when you have a candidate that says, I can do, these are my skills and these are the things that I can do, and this is what I have done. So it's less about the title and the experience and more about the impact that you can drive and demonstrate it like a track record of driving impact. Um, which I think it's an interesting shift in how companies are prioritizing hiring. Now, the question that I think it's unsolved is how do we build the next generation to have these skills and this impact? So yesterday I was doing another event. Someone asked, she was joining the workforce, and like, what is advice you have for people who are getting started, right? Right now, it's pretty hard to get interviews, like to get that first job. And my answer is always just do things, just create things, like use your imagination to come up with ideas, build them. Right now, it's never been easier to build something. It's never been harder to grow something, right? So you have those forces in opposition. But the reality is that if you go through the process of building something, you're gonna gain skills, you're gonna gain a lot of learnings, and you're gonna get demonstrable experience that you can share if you go through an onboarding process. Thank you for clarifying. Organizations becoming flat, hierarchy melting away. Yes, that's definitely something that I've been seeing. So companies getting flatter, everyone is getting flatter. And what I will tell you, I've at Canva and at Pinterest, I used to run my own organization, but I sometimes had the situation where I had to absorb other organizations. And one of the first things that I looked into, and I know it wasn't very popular with everyone, was what was the composition of the organization? Because something that I am against on principle is management structures where you have one person reporting to another person, right? You have one manager with one or two direct reports. That to me, there are some very specific exceptions to the rule, but generally what that signals to me is that rather than having a hard conversation with someone who is not ready to get promoted yet, you're giving them one direct report to appease them. And I'm sure you've all been in a situation where that happens or you've seen that happen. And so what that creates is this Frankensteinish organizations where you have 17 layers between the CEO and the intern. It's like you don't need 17 layers in a 400 people company, right? And so that is something that sometimes the easiest path forward is not necessarily the best path forward for the individual, for the manager, or for the business. So that's, I know it's like not everyone agrees, but hopefully some people in this room understand where I'm coming from. Okay, a couple other questions and then we can move on. I love this one. This is more a comment, but AI is very enterprise focused and has yet to really get consumer centric. Yes, I like that. It is true. I haven't seen the big consumer company powered by AI yet. I think the yet is very important. I see some cool consumer companies like we are playing, for example, in the B2B and B2C space. Definitely, we are more in the it's B2C, but it's in the work enterprise, like small business space. But a true consumer product, it hasn't made the debut yet, right? It's like you have companies like Sora that tried it. It failed and it was not like I don't think consumers want to just be in a world immersed by AI. I do think it opens up a lot of very interesting opportunities. I do think that in the world of gaming is going to be a place where we're going to see a lot of cool stuff happening. All right, a couple more talent focus. AI tools slap on top of systems that are going away. I really like that. That was something as we were building Bloom, I was like, how can we build it natively and from scratch? All right. Last one. So, Tabiha, I wanna touch on that because that is something that I've been seeing and a conversation that I've been having with many people. It's AI versus AI. You have candidates just like spreading their resume, fanning it out to every single platform that then applies to every single job. On the company side, like they're getting so many resumes, right? It's like you open a role and suddenly you have 300 applicants. The way that we've hired a couple roles in the past few months. I've created so much friction for people to apply to roles because I want a human being to click the button, right? So it was like comment on the LinkedIn post to get sent DM'd a link to the application, and then you have to fill in a Google form, and we ended up getting like 15 highly qualified candidates rather than 300 candidates that not. I appreciate that it is very frustrating for candidates at the moment, where you are putting all the effort and it's just a sea of content out there. One
I
thing
would
that we're
like,
seeing,
I,
you want to go
I would
ahead?
one point. So apart from AIs versus AI, we were in because there's a DAS tracking system, so we need to match exact description, like the qualification, while also keeping a resume. But when it's AI versus AI, in the data conference that I attended, was that even the employee, so it's somehow more increase of application, but also if it's true more match, then it's also get rejected. So it's like a little confusing system.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a tough world out there. So I think like the one piece of advice that I keep giving everyone and that I kind of see working is continue building your network. I'm seeing a lot of successful applications actually happening through connections now where it's funny because AI has done more for community and bringing people together, it seems, than the past 5 years of the creator economy, which feels kind of in opposition, but it's one of those things that end up being true. So, all right. I'm gonna pause the Q&A here, but we can pick it up at the end. I just wanted to show you and give you a demo of the tool that we've been building, right? Because at the end of the day, when we have these two forces, the job is fragmenting between us, and the people who used to guide us through that change are tapped out. Um, we land in one conclusion. The old way we grow our careers is breaking. So let's talk about what replaces it, right? And the single best tool that I personally have ever had for building the key muscles for leadership and resilience is coaching. A good coach doesn't necessarily hand you answers. They ask you the questions that make you see your own situation clearly. They hold you accountable. They help you turn those like feelings and ideas into actionable next steps. But as I mentioned earlier, coaching has always been a luxury. If you were a senior executive, a coach came with a title, but for everyone else, it was priced out. And so the people who benefit the most have the least access, which for me raised the question, can AI actually close that gap? And can we build a tool that takes coaching frameworks, coaching principles, memory, context, your personal situation that integrates with your work stack and make it accessible to everyone. So with that, we created Bluma. Bluma is an AI power career coach. I say it's a coach powered by technology, accessible to everyone. And the idea is that it has a proactive conversational interface. It has goal, progress tracking, insights. It gives you insights about how you grow over time. And then, Pia, if you want to go to the next slide, like it has like different sections where you can bring your contact, you can bring resources, you can integrate. Right now, we can integrate with Calendar, we can integrate with Google Drive, you can bring your granola notes and integrate them in the platform as well. And the way that we built it is with proactivity in mind. So the moment you open the app, it's like it guides you, it talks to you, it brings you contact from previous sessions, and so on. And also kind of like quick peek behind the curtain of how we built it. This goes well beyond conversational tools that might be out there in the market. There's a real method underneath it, and it maps directly into a number of things, right? It runs on key frameworks. We work with a group of coaching experts, leadership experts, folks like the former head of LinkedIn Learning, Marshall Goldsmith, who you may, he wrote What Got You Here Won't Get You There, Rachel Lockett, and so on. They're part of our advisory team. And what we do is take these frameworks and make them available to you in a personalized way. We like keeping people accountable because I think especially as founders, and I'm sure you can relate to this, you don't have someone who's necessarily keeping you accountable beyond yourself, and it's always nice. And then understanding the insights over time. That's something that I personally have been a huge fan of health trackers for the past few years, and it's a concept that we wanted to bring into the platform. So we have partnered with Founders Bay to get you guys free access. We have a little hands-on exercise that would love to guide you through. So if you want to sign up for Bluma, you'll get the first month free. And then with Founders Bay, you get an additional month free to get started. But as mentioned, accessibility was something very important from us from the get-go. So if you decide to keep going, the way that we price it was $25 a month and $250 per year to make sure that anybody could. I always say like the price of 3 Starbucks Frappuccinos. So the idea is that anybody can access it and it's not gated by your title.